And right now, beaches along our Gulf Coast, they are impacted by red tide blooms, hurting sea life as well as beachgoers out there.
Over the next few days, officials say to expect a high risk of respiratory irritation from red tide at some of those beaches we're talking about. I want to show you this because this is the latest FWC red tide map that shows concentrations across our area. Those red areas are where it's worse.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this comes right in time for spring break. In places like Indian Rocks Beach, crews are busy every morning there cleaning things up. And Aaron Parsegian is joining us live with an update. Maybe some better news this morning, Aaron, that you're not feeling it so much out there.
Yeah, we've been out here for a couple hours now, Kaylin. We don't really feel anything too much, maybe a little bit in our throat, but who knows if that's actually impacts the red tide. One of the things that's helping, though, we can feel the wind. It's actually blowing out towards or to the water, so that's probably helping with some of the impacts rather than if the wind was coming the opposite direction. But there is the impact still being felt on beaches across our area, like this one. You can see here these dead fish that are just kind of throughout the shoreline here. There's one, two, every couple of feet you're going to see them, and that's why crews will be out here just at 7 this morning to remove these dead fish from the beach, as they've been doing every day now. And it's not just impacting the fish, but we're also talking about how people can feel the effects. For those that spend time at the beach or by the water where concentrations are high, it can cause that respiratory irritation. You might feel that scratchy throat or even have a dry cough. And here at Indian Rocks Beach, it's prompted organizers to cancel their annual Beach Fest, which was actually scheduled for next month. They say what is strange is just how early in the year these blooms seem to be impacting things.
As long as I've been part of the organization and the event, it's not something that we've had to plan around or work around for this time of year. It's strange for us to have the red tide in our area this time of year. It's, like I said, it's typically in the fall.
And how it impacts people was really a day-by-day thing. You know, he said last weekend was a little bit worse than it has been the past couple of days. So you really got to play it by ear as far as that goes. And as I said, those crews will be out here cleaning up the dead fish that unfortunately wash ashore. But you can also help as well. They said people that live around this area can have a double plastic bag. They can actually pick up the fish themselves, tie it up, put it in the trash for their regular collection to help with these cleanup efforts as these dead fish wash ashore. And we want to bring in Grant now because, Grant, we've been talking about the impacts red tide can have on both people and the fish in this area for a couple weeks now, but I think it's worth a reminder, you know, to explain what's actually happening out on the water causing these problems.
Yeah, red tide hits the headlines, and it creates, I think, a little confusion on exactly what it is. So we want to revisit, you know, the details of the science and then the symptoms of it and exactly what's going on here. So when you start talking about red tide, specifically red tide is a higher than normal concentrations of microscopic algae, specifically for here in the Gulf Coast of Florida. It's this algae called Carina brevis. So these tiny little microscopic algae are naturally occurring, and they've really been documented since the 1800s. And when you get those higher concentrations or those harmful concentrations, that's when the water actually turns red. Now, the impacts on you and the impacts on the marine life is produced by the toxic chemicals that algal bloom is producing, and it affects the marine life as well as us humans. Now, those toxins in the air are actually produced because of the waves crashing onto those algal, those tiny little Carina brevis cells, and that breaks it apart and releases it up into the air. And then when the wind blows, that would blow that airborne toxin from over the water and then blows it out onto the land, which is we would inhale, and ultimately could produce some of that respiratory irritation that you would feel when you get out there and you have that weird dry cough. Now, obviously you don't want to breathe it in, but you don't want to swim in it either. So swimming in it or around it, that can cause that skin irritation. It can create some rashes and maybe even itch your eyes a little bit like that. But obviously it's the marine life that when they ingest some of those toxins in the water that causes them to die or become very sick. But ultimately the smell that you smell out on the beach is the decaying marine life. So that's why you want to get out there. It's very unsightly, but clean it up and that'll help with the smell as well, guys.